Hey everyone, and welcome to this edition of Just Parlays. I'm Jim Williams, along with the man, the legend, Chris King. Chris, before we get started, let's reflect on last night's win by the University of Georgia Bulldogs, and what in essence was a blowout fourth quarter, basically.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the way the game was played in the first half, I mean, all you saw was field goals, and I think what really turned the game, there was two things. There was Jameson Williams getting hurt, obviously took a big blow out of the passing game for Alabama, and I think the other turning point was that blocked field goal in the third quarter.
Right.
See, I mean, Alabama had chewed up 7.5 minutes or whatever on that drive and came up with no points, and that seemed to give Georgia momentum. They rallied after they fell behind after that fumble by Stetson Bennett that a lot of people were comparing to the Tuck rule, which you and I were talking about yesterday with Brent Musburger talking about the Raiders game on Sunday. Right. But they regrouped after that, and, the pick six in the final minute, sealed it. And, I guess now Georgia fans, they don't have to talk about Herschel Walker and Larry Munson and everybody else. They don't talk about 1980 anymore. They can, now talk about this. But I will say this. You have to wonder how different the game would have been had Williams been on the field in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about that. Speaking of being on the field or on the court or on the ice, our friends at Caesar Sportsbook is our sponsor, and we're happy to have them. And if you are one of our fans, then they're going to reward you. And the way they do that is your first bet either on the app or online. What happens is that you will get the opportunity to get matching dollars all the way up from $1 to $1,000, okay? So they'll match your first bet on the app or online by you entering the promo code, which is scrolling across there, Video Winners. Enter that promo code, and they're going to reward you by giving you $1 to $1,000 in matching money for your first bet on the app or, as we said before, online. Remember the two things. One, you have to be 21 years of age. Two, you have to be in one of the states where Caesars has the book, and all of that's listed in our show box below. And as Chris and I tell you, as of course our friends at Caesars would say as well, always bet responsibly. Okay, so with Caesars, it's a lot of fun to have them on board. And so from now, we go from our buddies at Caesars to our first event, which is college basketball this evening, and it's in the MAC.
Right. Well, first, let's get a question here. Nathan's asking about the early game. Iona is playing Fairfield, Jim, in about half an hour. That game in Fairfield at the ever-popular Webster Bank Arena in Fairfield, Connecticut. He's asking about the Gales tonight. They're favored by 7 overall. I mean, Iona, they're coming off a 1-point loss against a very good St. Louis team of the A-10 on Saturday. That dropped them to 11-3 on the year, but they're 3-0 in the MAC. Meanwhile, if you look at the other side, Fairfield, they're 8-7, but they've dropped 4 in a row. They lost to UMass on the road in overtime. Then they lost at home to Wagner and Marist. Nobody considering the Red Foxes as a great basketball team. And then they lost on the road at Siena. So they dropped from 8-3 to 8-7 and 2-2 in the MAC. I have to think that Rick Pitino's guys are going to be ready for this game. Fairfield's not all that great offensively. They struggle forcing turnovers on the defensive side of the ball. I have to think that the Gales should take care of business there, be up at the half, and go on to the victory. Obviously, we've seen Iona's played some good teams already this season. They beat Harvard in overtime. They beat Alabama on a neutral floor. They've beaten Yale. They beat Delaware. Rick Pitino's team, they're battle-tested, and they're not going to overlook the fact that, we're playing at 2 in the afternoon on a Tuesday and have that derail them at all, I don't believe.
And they went to the tournament last year. So that's not for nothing. I mean, he's got it's funny, he's back in New York where he started, and he's doing fine. So good for Rick, and good for Iona. As for the Golden Flashes,
Yeah,
Illinois. That should be an easy win for Kent State. You think?
oh yeah. I mean, if you look, they're favored big in this game. Northern Illinois, they're just 3-8 on the year. I know Kent State's only a 500 team, and they're only 4-3 at home. But Northern Illinois, 2-6 on the road. They just got whipped by 31 points on the road at Toledo over the weekend. I get that Todd Kowalczyk's done a good job with the Rockets, but I mean, come on, you gave up 94 points. Kent State, they lost 80-72 at Ohio, but everybody knows Ohio, is one of the front runners in the MAC. They're undefeated at home this year. They beat Akron last week when we thought that Akron would beat them. Northern Illinois, let's just be honest, they're brutal on the offensive end of the floor. They're 352nd in scoring offense. They average 57.3 points a game. They're 357th in field goal percentage at 37.3. That means there's only one team in the nation worse than them. Everybody knows who that is. It's IUPUI, who, kudos to the Jaguars for scoring a season-high 65 points yesterday. You still lost. Northern Illinois, 260.
Incremental steps, Chris.
That's true. Northern Illinois, 267th in three-point shooting. They're terrible at the free throw line. They're ranked 340th in the nation at 64.4%. They're 332nd in rebounding. Meanwhile, Kent State 70th in the nation in scoring defense at 63.8%. They're 67th in field goal percentage defense. They're 60th in three-point defense. Kent State 10-4 against the spread in their last 14 after a straight-up loss. Northern Illinois 4-10 in their last 14 on the road against teams with a winning home record. 2-6 in their last 8 as a road underdog. And an interesting stat about this game as well, these two teams met in a similar situation when Kent State came off a loss last season. Kent State was giving up 14.5 points in that game. They won 80-58. Northern Illinois 3-9 in their last 12 against the spread on the road overall. You have to figure, Kent State has had Northern Illinois' number, and the Huskies just don't score enough where you can consider them a viable threat to anybody right now. You have to look for Kent State to get back in the win column and win that one convincingly, as Northern Illinois is a train wreck on the offensive end of the floor.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the Big Ten.
Yeah, and it's everybody's favorite team of late, the Illinois Fighting Illini. They're favored by 12.5 points as they travel to Lincoln to face Nebraska. Let's be honest, Nebraska, they haven't been good in years. They're not any good now. Illinois is 11-3, Nebraska 6-10. The Cornhuskers are just 6-5 at home. Now, when you're struggling and you figure that they haven't really played a ton of conference games, because the Cornhuskers, they're 0-5 in the Big Ten, but 3 of those games were on the road, so they've lost 2 home games in conference play. They lost to Michigan by 35. They lost to Ohio State by 8. But, they've also lost to Western Illinois. They lost to Creighton. They lost to Kansas State all at home. Meanwhile, Illinois, they're rolling along. They just came off another win as they took down Maryland last week in a game where we told you to take the Fighting Illini, in a game where you said, well, when I asked you about it, that Qudus Wahab would not be able to handle Kofi Cockburn, and that was true. Wahab fouled out in 10 minutes. Finished with no points and 2 rebounds in that game.
And they still won.
Oh, no. I mean, Wahab fouled out for Maryland.
Right. From Maryland, right.
Nebraska, they're terrible defensively. They're 342nd, giving up 78.3 points a game, 231st in field goal percentage, 319th in three-point percentage. They're facing an Illinois team that's 25th in the nation in scoring offense at better than 80 points a night, 60th in field goal percentage. Most importantly, they're second in rebounding at 43.9 boards a game behind only Kentucky. They're 21st in three-point shooting. You have to think Cockburn will have another big game. Nebraska lacks the size to slow him down. Their starting center is – let me double-check here because I've looked at it earlier and thought it was hilarious. Their starting center, Derek Walker, 6'9", 239. Their backup center is 6'11", but he weighs 236. You think Cockburn will be bouncing off those guys like a rubber ball bouncing off a wall.
Yeah.
And just sending those guys bowling. Illinois 4-0 in their last 4.
Fell out.
Yeah, that's possible. Illinois 4-0 in their last 4 overall. They're 6-0 in their last 6 as a favorite. They're 6-1 in their last 7 after a straight-up win. Meanwhile, Nebraska 2-6 in their last 8 at home against teams with a winning road record. They're 1-4 in their last 5 after giving up 90 points or more, and they're coming off that horrible 93-65 pasting on the road at Rutgers Saturday in a game that probably wasn't even that close when you get right down to it. The sad part is Nebraska likes to run. They're 19th in the nation in tempo at 73 possessions a game, but they're 343rd in offensive rebounding, which doesn't bode well when you shoot as poorly as they do. Meanwhile, you're facing an Illinois team that will destroy you on the glass. The Fighting Illini first in the nation in offensive rebounding. They grab offensive boards on 41.8% of their misses. You have to think if they shoot from outside and misses, Cockburn is going to get an offensive rebound and 2 or 3 points if they foul him and send him to the line. You can't trust Nebraska at all here. I look for another one-sided win for Illinois as they just keep rolling along. And Fred Hoiberg, like I said in the pregame, Jim, I feel bad for him. You know, he took that job, and like you said, not only has the basketball team bad, the football team has been bad.
Yeah, let me ask you something. You've got the situation where saying that they're playing tempo, right?
Right.
But how do you play tempo and miss so many shots? I mean, normally when you play tempo, you're in the paint most of the time because you've advanced the ball faster than the other team can get back. So unless they're they're stopping at the 3-point line and launching, I have no idea.
Well, the sad part is the average possession for Nebraska is just over 15 seconds out of the shot clock, which is the 9th shortest time of possession. But like you said, they're 335th in 3-point shooting. They jack up a lot of threes for who knows why, because they don't hit them. Obviously, there's a lot of youth on that team, but somewhere, you've still got Alonzo Verge. But I mean, when we saw him at Arizona State, he would just shoot the ball for the sake of shooting the ball. Nebraska's averaging 25 3-point attempts per game this season. They make 7.
Jeez. Well, let's get away from this dumpster fire as we can. The Illini out in they're playing Nebraska, right? Is that what you said?
that's in Lincoln.
Right. So they're the Illini will start shooting when they come off the bus. So that should, by the time this is over, who knows what the score is going to be. But Illinois should win big. All right, next up on the slate we go to
the Big 12.
The Big 12. And this on paper should be a good matchup.
Yeah, and real quick, Nathan, I would endorse the first half play with Illinois being way ahead. I mean, we already saw Nebraska, like I said, they were blown out by 28 by Rutgers on the road. They lost by 35 at home to Michigan earlier in conference play. There's no reason to think they'll hang around here, unless Cockburn suddenly picks up 4 fouls in the first 5 minutes, which I don't see happening. They should be comfortably ahead at the half. But, the Big 12, this game's in Morgantown, the good old WVU Coliseum. Oklahoma State, they're a 3-point underdog on the road here. West Virginia, they're 12-2. Oklahoma State 8-5. The Cowboys are coming in off that 64-51 upset of number 14 Texas over the weekend. That game came, of course, at the Gallagher-Iba Arena in Stillwater, while West Virginia edged past Kansas State 71-68 at home. Funny thing, though, if you look, Oklahoma State's played all of one road game this season. That's it. 1. Meanwhile, West Virginia's 9-0 at home, and Jim, you can attest to how loud it can get in the WVU Coliseum over there.
Indeed, yeah. It's and it also is everything is very close there, so it's warm, and even in the wintertime when it's cold outside, and it's cold outside in Morgantown, believe me. When you play in that arena, it's loud and it is hot, so it doesn't make it very comfortable.
And you know that Bob Huggins and Press Virginia are going to force Oklahoma State to move the ball and not to cough it up. West Virginia is 25th in defensive efficiency. They're 29th in scoring defense. They only give up 61.4 points a game. They're 97th in effective field goal percentage defense. They're 8th in turnover percentage. Teams turn the ball over on 25.8% of their possessions. And they're 11th in the nation in block percentages as they block 1 out of every 6 shot attempts.
Wow.
Meanwhile, you look, Oklahoma State, we said they've played one road game. They escaped against Oral Roberts 78-77 in overtime back on November 26th.
Jeez.
Yeah, so, I mean, don't get me wrong. Oral Roberts is a good mid-major. We've talked about them a couple times on the show, Max Adams and company. But you beat them by one. You also have to remember that in a game we talked about a few weeks ago, Oklahoma State had to go to overtime to beat Cleveland State, another mid-major team from the Horizon League, in overtime at home. I get West Virginia was a bit sloppy against Kansas State, but it was only the second time they had played in like 3 weeks because of COVID issues. Now they have their feet under them. West Virginia's 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 after an ATS loss. Mm-hmm. They're 4-1 in their last 5 after a straight-up win. Meanwhile, Oklahoma State 1-6 in their last 7 against teams with a winning straight-up record. And perhaps more damning, the Cowboys 1-6 against the spread in their last 7 overall coming into this one. I get the fact that the Cowboys have won some games and they are coming off that upset win over Texas, but you look at their recent games, they lost to Houston by 11 on a neutral floor. They lost to Kansas by 11 at home. They lost to Xavier by 6 at home. They lost to Wichita State by 9, also at home. They had that win over Cleveland State that went to overtime, and the game before that was that 1-point win over Oral Roberts. So that 7-game stretch from the end of November to now, we haven't seen a whole lot out of Mike Boynton's team that impresses anybody. Now you're facing a team that is very good on the defensive end, that is going to make you work on every possession, provided you get across the mid-court line.
Right.
And you're playing in a hostile environment. This is tailor-made for Bob Huggins' team.
Yeah.
I like the Mountaineers at home.
No, absolutely. And the points, 3 points aren't bad. So, I mean, that's a bucket. So, from long range. But you're right. I mean, the absolute and total resume of Bob Huggins is, best defensive coach in whatever league he's usually in. And he's very much the old school press guy from the time, they don't even give you an inbound pass. I mean, they're bodying up on you on the line. So yeah, it's going to be tough for Oklahoma State to roll into Morgantown and roll out with a win. That's for darn sure. Let's go to the ice, my friend.
All right, and we're going to head out to Nashville. The Predators are an underdog tonight over the Avalanche, but I like them because of the fact that Colorado was playing the second game of a back-to-back. They rallied to beat Seattle last night 4-3 at home in a game that was kind of disappointing because you figured they would have scored more than 4, given how poorly Seattle's been in their own end. Colorado 22-8-2 this season. Nashville 23-11-2. The Preds have won 4 in a row, and they've been off since Saturday. They beat Arizona 4-2 on the road then. Nashville 10-5-0 at home. Colorado just 8-6-1 on the road. They made their money at the Ball Arena. Darcy Kemper, he was supposed to start last night. They switched him out at the last minute. He's 16-5-0 with a 277 goals against and a 908 save percentage. He'll be between the pipes for the Avalanche. Meanwhile, UC Saros 19-9-1 with a 221 goals against, a 929 save percentage, and 2 shutouts. A guy who's quickly making a push to try and be considered as a Vezina candidate in goal for Nashville. And remember, all this time we've seen Pekka Rinne up until he retired after the season. So it's nice to see that Saros has been able to break out of that shadow of Rinne and take over the starting role. And he's played pretty well.
Yeah.
Colorado, they do score 3.8 goals per game on the road, but they give up a staggering 3.93 goals away from home. That's a pretty big number to give up, especially when you're playing the second game of back-to-back and you had to travel east, so you actually lost time because, it's 2-3 hours. I can't remember if is it 3 hours behind in Denver?
Did they play in Denver last night?
Yeah, they played at home against Seattle last night.
2 hours.
It's 2?
Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
Nashville, if Nashville's in the east, then it's 2. So, yeah. So it's 2 hours. So you lose 2 hours. Plus, that's a give or take a 4-hour plane flight. So you figure they got into their hotel maybe 7 o'clock this morning, maybe 8.
Yeah, so there's probably no morning skate to speak of.
No.
or
There
anything
might
else.
not be much of a skate at night.
Yeah, so Nashville, they got back Sunday probably after playing Saturday night, so they've had time to recover and get back up to speed. Like I said, the Preds 4-0 in their last 4 overall. They're 6-0 in their last 6 against Western Conference teams, and they're 9-1 in their last 10 after a win. They're also 8-1 in their last 9 after giving up 2 goals or less. Don't get me wrong, Colorado's a good hockey team. They've got a lot of talent. Mm-hmm. But, you're dealing with the travel factor. You're dealing with the fact that it's the second game of a back-to-back where like you said, they got in early this morning. Mm-hmm. And you have to give Nashville the advantage playing at home with the rest advantage in their pocket.
Who's in goal for Colorado tonight?
Kemper.
Okay.
Yeah, last night I'll have to double check and see who they threw in goal yesterday because they've played revolving door as the backup goaltender after they dumped Jonas Johansson and Florida picked him up.
Right.
Let's see who they had yesterday. It wasn't the ghost of David Abisher. I know that. Yeah. Let's see. Where is it? Oh, they brought back Pavel Francouz, who hadn't played in.
Oh my gosh.
He's apparently played in 3 games now, but
yeah.
But he sadly his season debut came against Nashville on the road back on December 16th. He lost that game 5-2. So I guess that's why they decided not to play him tonight and went with and started him yesterday against Seattle to put Kemper in between the pipes tonight.
Probably a wise choice on their part. So, all right. So from Nashville, we go to the nation's capital. Yes. No.
No. San Jose.
Going out to the Shark Tank.
Yep. The Sharks are favored over the Red Wings tonight. Detroit 16-6-4, San Jose 19-6-1 this season. Detroit comes in off a 4-3 shootout loss to Anaheim. That was the second game of back-to-back, so they'll play their third game in 4 nights here. Meanwhile, the Sharks have won 2 straight after beating Philadelphia 3-2 in overtime on the road Saturday. These teams met last week in Detroit. The Red Wings took a 6-2 win early last week. But since then, the Sharks have won 2 straight. The Red Wings have gone downhill. Alex Nedeljkovic, 10-9-3 with a .286 goals against and a .915 save percentage, is expected to start for the Red Wings. Aiden Hill, 8-9-0 with a .286 goals against and a .904 save percentage plus 1 shutout, expected to get the start for the Sharks. The Red Wings, they're playing their 4th game in 6 nights, their 3rd game in 4 nights. They're 9-25 in the 4th game of their last 34 4-game and 6-night situations. They're 14-63 in their last 77 on the road. They're 13-62 in their last 75 as a road underdog. Meanwhile, the Sharks, they've won their last 4 as a favorite. They're 4-1 in their last 5 against teams with a losing record. They're 6-2 in their last 8 on Tuesday. The Sharks have won 14 of the last 20 meetings between these teams at the SAP Center, and the home team has prevailed in 7 of the last 9 meetings when these teams take the ice. It all points to a San Jose victory. The Red Wings, they're ahead of schedule. I'll give them that. Nobody expected them to be contending for a playoff spot. They're on the outside now with Boston moving ahead of them. But they played better than most people would have expected, but they're going to run out of steam tonight. I think the fatigue is going to catch up to them as the game wears on, and San Jose will come up with the victory, having fresher legs, provided half the guys that they have listed on the injury report as questionable play.
Yeah. About San Jose, it's kind of funny. When you think of San Francisco and specifically sports, the crowds are more subdued. They support their teams well, but they're not overly crazy. It seems like the Oakland Raiders fans adopted the San Jose Sharks because when you go to the Shark Tank, you gotta, it's an experience. Those people know how to get on your nerves, and Detroit making the trip out to San Jose is they may know the way to San Jose. It's the way back to Detroit that's going to be a pain in the neck for them. Now we're going to the nation's capital to watch the Capitals play, right?
No, we're not. The Capitals played last night,
we get to Washington's going to be basketball.
Right.
So this is up in Buffalo.
Yeah, this is at the KeyBank Center. The Lightning, they're on the road to face the Sabres. Tampa Bay 23-9-5, Buffalo 10-18-6. Tampa Bay was beaten Saturday night in their last game 5-2 at home by the Bruins. Meanwhile, Buffalo lost 3-2 at home to that same San Jose team we just talked about in their previous game on Thursday. You have to think the goaltending matchup is going to favor the Lightning here. Andrei Vasilevsky, 19-6-3 with a 223 goals against and a 923 save percentage to go with 2 shutouts against Buffalo's Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who, is only up because Craig Anderson has been out since early November. Dustin Tokarski, last I knew, was still in the health and safety protocols, and it's either Luukkonen or Malcolm Subban, and nobody wants to see Subban in net except opposing teams.
Right.
He's Luukkonen 2-4-2 with a 261 goals against and a 922 save percentage for the Sabres in his limited action. Tampa Bay is 11th in the league in goals per game with 3.24. The Sabres are 26th in that category with 2.62 per contest. Buffalo struggles in their own end. They're 27th in goals against at 3.47. Tampa Bay, they're still in the middle of the pack, which is surprising given the way Vasilevsky's played. But then you have to consider that number is also inflated by the stretch where the Lightning didn't have Vasilevsky or Brian Elliott, so they were down to Maxime Legacy and Hugo Arnefelt in between the pipes a couple weeks ago. So that number will probably come back down, I would imagine. Tampa Bay has taken 8 of the last 10 meetings between these teams. They're 53-16 in their last 69 fourth game and 6-night situations. They're 58-18 in their last 76 against Atlantic Division teams. Meanwhile, they say there's no place like home. That's not the case for the Sabres. They're 1-10 in their last 11 at the KeyBank Center. They're 1-6 in their last 7 against the Atlantic Division, and they're 1-4 in their last 5 on 2 days of rest. Don Granado's had a tough time. They had some more guys enter the protocols in the last day or so. They're getting a few guys back. Jack Quinn is supposed to make his NHL debut tonight for the Sabres. It's not going to make a big difference. Tampa Bay should win this one by multiple goals, as Buffalo is, let's put it bluntly, they're struggling.
It's funny. Teams like Tampa Bay, like Pittsburgh, perennial playoff teams, they do have a tendency during the course of the season, specifically January, February, of kind of just resting people and not necessarily, you'll get a healthy scratch and you'll look at it and go, wait a minute, man, that guy, usually starts. Why is he healthy scratch? And it goes back to the theory of, their season doesn't end, at the end of March, early April. Their season, they hope, ends sometime in June. So that's what we see sometimes. We see these games where, I'm not saying it's going to happen tonight. I'm just saying that there are times when they rest guys, and they do it because, as I said before, they feel their season's going to be over in June and not, at the end of March, early April. So we'll see how that plays out over the rest of the season. But it's something to think about. Let's go to the association.
All right, and we'll head to the Windy City, where the Bulls are favored by 2 touchdowns over the Pistons. Obviously, this game will probably be more entertaining than if it was the Bears and the Lions.
True.
The Bulls 26-11. The Pistons are 9-30. The Pistons rallied to beat Utah last night, 126-116 at home. Chicago fell 113-99 at Dallas Sunday night. And I will say this about the game last night for the Pistons: it shows, for all the people out there that think that a guy like Rudy Gobert is just a tall guy and, has no place in the small ball world of the NBA. If Gobert's on the floor last night instead of Hassan Whiteside company, there's no way in hell the Pistons score 126 points. Mm-hmm. I don't care who. I mean, let's face it, Detroit is horrible on the offensive end of the floor. But, without Gobert's presence down there in the low block to clear the glass or to, alter shots, mm-hmm. It made it a lot easier for Detroit to come back. They were down big in the first half.
Right.
But, of course, with every ray of sunshine, some rain must fall, and that's where it's going to come for the Pistons. They're 2-4 in the second game of back-to-backs. They've been outscored by 11.1 points per game in those situations. And they only averaged 98.2 points per game in those games. Meanwhile, Chicago's 14-4 at home. They outscore their opponents by better than 6 points a night. And more damning, the Bulls have won the last 9 meetings between these teams. 5 of those have come by double figures. Mm-hmm. Detroit's 1-8 in their last 9 after scoring more than 125 points. They're 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 after scoring at least 100. So they don't even have to have a big offensive day to struggle. The Bulls 6-1 against the spread in their last 7 on Tuesday. They're 4-1 in their last 5 as a home favorite. Not only have the Bulls won the last 9 meetings between these teams, they've covered in each of the last 9. Doesn't bode well for Detroit. That includes the Pistons 0-4 against the spread in the last 4 meetings in Chicago. The Bulls should have little problem dispatching a Detroit team that obviously is going to be tired. And the Bulls are getting healthy, which is a big plus for them.
You've been, no pun intended, or probably pun intended, you've been bullish on Chicago for a while now. And the thing is, they haven't let you down.
Yeah, I mean, they've played good basketball. I mean, Billy Donovan's done a good job. DeMar DeRozan leads the league in fourth quarter scoring. You've got Zach LaVine out there. You've got Nikola Vucevic, so you've got a big man in the paint. Mm-hmm. And they've just played good basketball.
Right.
Well, and Detroit obviously hasn't.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I was just saying that with Billy Donovan, you're going to play team basketball. That's his stock and trade.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Jim. Didn't Billy Donovan learn from Rick Pitino?
He did, yeah. It was Rick Pitino who put him up for the job at the University of Florida. And then it was Rick Pitino again who made the phone call whenever the folks out in OKC were looking for a head coach. That was the guy that got the call. So Billy's been, exactly what you're talking about. He follows Pitino and that whole Pitino theory, which is, play 6 or 7 guys deep and just, rotate and keep fresh legs in there all the time. So, if you can pull it off, and clearly he's got the personnel in Chicago to do it, then you can play the kind of games that Billy likes to play.
Well, and let's not forget the Pitino-Donovan relationship goes back even further than that, because Donovan was the starting point guard for Pitino when they made that run to the Final Four back in 1987.
That's right. I'm not so sure Billy could do that now, but yeah, it was good in 1987. We were all good in 1987, Chris.
That's true.
Now, am I totally off base by finally, after 3 times saying we're going to the nation's capital? Are we going now?
Yes. Or as Marv Elmer would say, yes.
Yes, Marv.
And the foul.
And 1.
The Wizards favored by 9 over the Thunder tonight. Washington's 20-20. Oklahoma City 13-26 this season. Sadly, despite being 13 games under 500, the Thunder just 2 games out of the final spot in the play-in tournament in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
Just because of the way things work.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Thunder 5-13 on the road. The Wizards 10-7 at home this season. Thunder last in the league in scoring offense at 99.6 points per game. They're last in field goal percentage at 41.3. They're last in 3-point shooting at 30.8%. Meanwhile, the Wizards are a little bit better. They're 21st in scoring offense at 107.3 points per game. They're 7th in field goal percentage at 46.5. They're 27th in 3-point shooting at 32.6. The Wizards come in off a 2-point road win over Orlando Sunday in their last game. The Thunder lost 99-95 at home to Denver. The Thunder also won't have Kenrich Williams or Isaiah Roby. They're both in the protocols. The Wizards are expected to get Montrezl Harrell back tonight. He's missed several games in the protocols. That'll be a big boost for the Wiz.
Right.
The Thunder 4-11 in their last 15 on Tuesday. The Wizards 19-7 in their last 26 at home against teams with a road winning percentage below 400. I know it's a fair amount of points, but, I mean, Oklahoma City just doesn't score with any kind of consistency. You have to think that Washington will take care of business at home to get back over 500. I mean, they started the season strong. They tapered off. Hopefully they can turn it back around. in a crowded Eastern Conference picture.
All right, let me ask you a question. Can we go to Memphis and have some fish and grits at Miss Carol's on Beale Street?
Sure, why not?
On the next, right? But then we'll stay over at the stay over at the hotel and see our friends the Ducks over there and enjoy hanging out down the street from the FedEx Forum, right? That's where we're going.
But real quick, Patrick, I'm glad that you took the time to comment about how we're the worst people on YouTube. I saw you comment last week about how we were terrible, but then we hit every game that was on the board and you didn't say anything. So I'm glad you took the time to stop by. I'll look forward to finding your show so I can see, how great your picks are. Because, it's called gambling. It's not called guarantees. That's the way the sports world works. You're not going to win every time. It happens to everybody. But, hey, I'm glad you feel good that I stopped by. So hopefully it made your day a little bit better. And we look forward to the people that come here and, enjoy the show. So there's your 15 seconds of fame. Hope you enjoy it. Anyway, back to the action. Like we said, Golden State, they're on the road against Memphis. The Warriors are 30-9 this season. The Grizzlies are 28-14. Memphis, they've won 9 in a row. They beat the Lakers on the road Sunday night. The problem for the Grizzlies here, Dylan Brooks is out with an ankle injury. He's going to be out until mid to late February. Could miss all the way through the All-Star break, which is a big blow because he's the second leading scorer for Memphis behind John Morant. Steven Adams is in the health and safety protocols. He's questionable tonight. So is Yves Pons. Those are two big blows. I mean, Adams doesn't score a lot, but he's good on the glass.
Mm-hmm.
Pons has been a bit of a role player, but they could use another healthy body in the low block. Golden State, they snapped a 2-game slide. They beat Cleveland 96-82 Sunday night. And Klay Thompson's first game in, 2 years?
Yeah.
Hard to believe. The Warriors without Draymond Green, he's out with a calf injury. James Wiseman still out as he comes back from that knee injury. Gary Payton Jr. With an ankle, and Otto Porter questionable with a shoulder injury. Now, the funny thing was, for anybody that didn't see that game Sunday night, Draymond Green was originally listed as he wasn't going to play, then he was going to play. Then he played 7 seconds so he could commit a foul because he wanted to be on the floor with Klay Thompson. It led to a lot of controversy because once people found out that he was going to play for a few seconds, a lot of people jumped on Draymond Green's under on all the props. So they're trying to figure out how they're going to handle that situation. It'll be interesting. Fortunately, Green won't be on the floor tonight. You don't have to worry about him playing 7 seconds and committing a foul. The Warriors, they lead the league in scoring defense at 100.9 points per game. They lead the league in field goal percentage defense at 42.5%. They're second in three-point defense. The Warriors are 12-2 against the spread in their last 14 against teams with a winning percentage above 600. They're 5-1-1 in their last 7 on the road against teams with a home winning percentage better than 600. And they're 14-5-1 in their last 20 following a win at home. I get the fact that, Memphis is hot. They've won 9 straight. But all good things have to come to an end. And, especially without Brooks, you have to wonder where they're going to get enough secondary scoring. Jaren Jackson has been okay, but he hasn't been great. And, there's not a ton of big scoring threats behind Morant. He might have to try to carry that team on his back, but I don't think he can do enough.
It was amazing to see Klay Thompson come back the other night when they made that introduction. The place went nuts, and it's good to see him back. I mean, yeah, like Golden State needs another player to play in that package. They're getting Klay Thompson back. That, the rich get richer, huh?
Yeah, basically. I mean, you can only think about how much better they'll get with Wiseman back, because then they'll actually have a big man in the paint that can do something. But right now, it's hard to believe how they can fit that much talent and still, stay under the cap.
Right. Well, it is what it is. They figured it out pretty well, but it was nice to see.
It's kind of like the Lightning.
Yeah. It's just keep on rolling. it's how good franchises win. They figure it out, and but it was good to see Klay Thompson back. I mean, he hasn't played in, like you said, 2 years. It's always good to see somebody like that, good player, good person, get an opportunity to get back and have some fun. Before we go to our entertaining 2, 4, and lots, let's go back and talk a little bit about our buddies at Caesars Sportsbook. Now, as we told you earlier, Caesars Sportsbook, which is the official sportsbook of the National Football League, has a very cool promotion they're running here with us at Winners and Whiners. If you use your promo code, which is Video Winners, and you make your first wager on either the app or online, they're going to match you dollar for dollar all the way up to $1,000. So, folks, that's a pretty good deal. Okay, all you have to do is, as I said, make your first wager on the Caesars Sportsbook app or Caesars Sportsbook website, and use that promo code, which is scrolling on the bottom there, which of course is Video Winners, and they will reward you for being part of our family by matching your first bet dollar for dollar up to $1,000. Okay, all the information on this fun promotion is in our show box below. And as always, 2 things you must remember. 1, you have to be 21 years of age to participate. 2, you have to live in a state where Caesars has a sports book, and all that information is in our show box below. As we say here, both at Winners and Whiners and our friends at Caesars, always bet responsibly. Okay? All right, cool. So, my friend, we are ready to go for 2 for the show, 2 for the money.
All right.
And here we go.
Like we said, I know a lot of people like Memphis, and I get it. They're a good team. But I think the Golden State, they're only given 2 points in this one. So I'm going to take the Warriors -2. Obviously, like you said, the boost of Thompson in that rotation makes them that much deeper. It takes a lot of pressure off guys. It'll make it easier for Peyton Jr. or Peyton II. I just call him Jr. because it's force of habit.
Right.
And without Brooks, it's going to be a little tougher for Memphis offensively. And surprisingly, I like the Sharks over the Red Wings. San Jose, they played some decent hockey, and Detroit's going to be a bit tired. They struggled against Anaheim. Look for the Sharks there. Then a double shot of college hoops. We talked about West Virginia playing at home over Oklahoma State. The Mountaineers are 9-0 at home. They play good basketball there. And it's probably going to be one of those defensive slugfests because Oklahoma State's good on the defensive end and have their issues offensively. Roland, yeah, Evander Kane has pretty much done nothing all season. Obviously, I know the Sharks waived him. The league is, or the Players Association has filed a grievance on his behalf. I don't think it's really going to matter. Detroit's not a big offensive team. They are, I believe, 26th or so in the league in scoring offense. And the Sharks have a little bit better numbers on both ends of the ice. On top of that, Detroit can't score on the power play to save their lives. So, plus playing at home, I think San Jose will come out there. But like I was saying, West Virginia -3 over Oklahoma. And Illinois, that's pretty much your, as Carl from Aqua Teen Hunger Force used to do on the Scott Van Pelt radio show, the stone cold lock of the century of the week is probably Illinois -13 over Nebraska. Nebraska has been terrible basketball this season. Illinois, we just saw them. They rolled over Maryland. They've beaten Iowa. They've beaten, let's see, who else did they beat that we told you to take last week? I have to remember. No, they beat Minnesota in that game. That was horrible. They won by 23 points on the road. If you look at Illinois' last 4 games, they've won by 58, 25, 23, and 12. And that's just because Maryland closed the gap in garbage time because they were up probably by about 3,000 points. Nebraska, they struggle defensively, and they don't have the size to contain Cockburn. If Cockburn doesn't have a double-double, we'll have Steen and Reichel eat their hats or something.
Right.
Because he's put up a double-double in like the last seven straight games, I believe it is.
Mm-hmm.
And Nebraska has no chance of hanging in this game, barring Cockburn hurting himself in pregame warmups.
Right.
So,
or the bus not finding its way to the arena.
Yeah. Though even if the bus didn't find its way to the arena, I'd probably still take the Illinois bench over Nebraska.
There you go. They travel well. All right, so let's go to 4 for the show.
Yeah, I like USC. I mean, they're at their highest ranking in the AP poll since 1974. They're going on the road to face Stanford. I get Stanford is 6-0 at home, but if you look, the Cardinal really, they don't overwhelm anybody. Yeah. I get Jared Haas is trying to keep that team afloat, but if you look at their home wins, they beat Tarleton State, they beat San Jose State, they beat Valpo, they beat North Carolina A&T, they beat Dartmouth in overtime.
CSA people,
yeah, and their best win at home was over Oregon, but that was a month ago. On top of that, their last game was nearly 3 weeks ago when they played in the Diamond Head Classic against Liberty. That's a big layoff for anybody, especially when you're playing a team like USC that is unbeaten on the year. Mm-hmm. They're coming off a win last week over Cal. You have to think Andy Enfield, he's going to have this team ready to go. I like the Trojans to stay unbeaten, to go on the road up there in Palo Alto at the Maples Pavilion and come up with the win. We talked about the Bulls. We talked about the Pistons. I don't think there's a whole lot you can say about the Pistons. And, John, you're right. It's a lot of points. But like we said a few minutes ago, the Pistons have failed to cover in any of the last 9 meetings against the Bulls, which have all been won by Chicago. Plus, they're playing the second game of a back-to-back here, which is why I'm fading Detroit in this situation. The Nuggets minus 2.5 over the Clippers. Jim, you can attest to it. The Clippers haven't been all that good.
No, they've been in defense. They have been shorthanded. But that being said, no, they haven't played well.
And that's going to be it. They're still going to be shorthanded. Paul George not playing, Hartenstein not playing, Luke Kennard likely out, Leonard out. Justice Winslow's in the protocols as well. I get that the Nuggets won't have Will Barton, but everybody else that that they're missing, you already knew wasn't going to play anyway. You knew Michael Porter Jr. wasn't going to play. They still got that guy named Jokic. Mm-hmm. From what I hear, he's pretty good. And the Clippers don't really have a guy that can contain him at all.
No.
And that could be the big difference in the game because, Jokic can turn the game on his own. He doesn't need any help.
No.
Yeah, finally, we talked about it. Nashville, they're an underdog at home against Colorado, but as good as the Avalanche are offensively, they struggle defensively on the road, giving up 3.93 goals a game. And they're playing the second game of a back-to-back. Like you said, they got in probably early this morning. Mm-hmm. They're going to be heavy-legged after having to travel and losing time in the process. Nashville's had a couple days off. Mm-hmm. And Colorado's not that great of a road team.
Every reason not to go there. I watch a lot of West Coast basketball, and I've seen USC play a couple times this year. USC's a good little team. There's nothing wrong with that. They have
you think about the guys that they lost. You lost Evan Mobley to the draft this year or last year, but it doesn't matter because they just keep they retooled. They still have his brother Isaiah Mobley, and they've got Drew Peterson. Chavez Goodwin played good basketball over here when he played at Wofford before he transferred a couple of years ago. So, they've still got a good veteran team. Ethan Anderson is good at the point. So, you're not dealing with a bunch of scrubs.
No, and the 2 times I've seen them play, they don't turn the ball over.
That's true. They're 22nd in the nation in turnover percentage.
So
and they lead the nation in effective field goal percentage defense as opposing teams shoot 40.6% effective field goal percentage, 40.2% from 3, 40.2% from 2, which is third best, 27.5% from 3. And you look, they've beaten some decent teams. They blew out Utah. They beat San Diego State. Everybody knows how tough the Aztecs are.
Right.
You have to try. for once, you can actually talk about USC having a good basketball team and not have people laugh at you.
Right.
Normally, when you talk about basketball, there you talk about UCLA.
Without people evoking the name of the Miller family. So yeah, it's been a while since Reggie and his sister played at USC. But yeah, they're playing good basketball. I've been impressed with the Trojans so far this season, and good team. All right, let's get ready to go for the big one, the enchilada. And I'll let Chris explain that you don't have to take the whole bunch, but there's a lot of good ones in there.
Right. I mean, you can take 2, you can take 4. If you want to take a couple of these and mix them up with the other ones we put up top, you can do that too. Heck, if you want to take Illinois and you want to throw in, Kent State, do that. Whatever works. It's all a matter of concept there. Whichever ones call to you the most are the ones you should put in there.
Mm-hmm.
Toledo, they were originally favored by 1. Now they're a 1-point underdog against Miami of Ohio. Interesting stat, Toledo's won the last 15 meetings between these teams. Todd Kowalczyk's team is playing good basketball. I mean, we talked about it earlier. They blew out Northern Illinois by 31 over the weekend. Miami of Ohio fell in overtime to Bowling Green. Granted, these Mid-American Conference games are always great. They're always entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see a lot of points. It's kind of like when they play college football over there. Defense is optional.
Right.
But Toledo, they're a little bit better than Miami of Ohio right now. Kent State, we said, minus 15.5 over Northern Illinois. We talked about it at the top of the show. Northern Illinois, 357th in the league or in the nation in field goal percentage. The only team worse, IUPUI. Congratulations for those of you who took the Jaguars plus 8 last night. UIC didn't score enough points. I was disappointed. But, hey, kudos for the Jaguars. They scored 65 points. Now we don't have to talk about how their high point total was against Spalding.
Right.
Kent State should have no problem bombing Northern Illinois in this game. Down in the CAA, we got James Madison minus 6 over Northeastern. Normally I like Bill Cohn's team. The Huskies play good basketball, but they're on the road and they haven't had any success as the road team this season. If you look, the Huskies are a dismal 0-6 on the road. Meanwhile, James Madison 6-1 at home. The Dukes are playing good basketball. Big matchup down there in Big 12 country, Jim, down in the Lone Star State. Number 1 Baylor, favored by 12 over a good Texas Tech team. But you have to wonder, is this Texas Tech team going to still get by with the way they've played basketball? I mean, it's not the same under Mark Adams as it was under Chris Beard. You saw them lose a rock fight with Iowa State last week, losing 51-47. They've also lost to Providence on the road. They lost to Gonzaga on a neutral floor. Now you'd have to go to Waco, and God knows the Farrell Center is not a place that's friendly for opposing teams. You look at Baylor's
Texas teams.
Yeah. You look at Baylor's home wins this year. They've won by 27, 29, 45, 38 over Stanford, 45. They beat Villanova by 21 in a game where they held the Wildcats to 36 points.
Then Villanova was ranked at that time.
Well, they still are, but they were a top 5 team at that point, I think. Then they've won by 37, 36, and their closest game lately was a 10-point win over Oklahoma last Tuesday. It's tough to stop Baylor. I mean, they're 4th in offensive efficiency. They're 7th in defensive efficiency. They shoot an effective field goal percentage of 56.5%, and defensively they force turnovers at a 26.1% clip. It's going to be tough for anybody to go into Waco and come up with a win.
And you got Joanna Gaines sitting courtside. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I like Baylor there.
There's your Leafs.
Yep. I think that game's going to stay under the total out there in Vegas. I mean, the Leafs have to save a little bit of energy. They play the Coyotes in the desert tomorrow night and the back-to-back. In the first meeting this season, last month, Toronto won 4-0 over Vegas behind Jack Campbell. I imagine Campbell's going to be in net tonight against Robin Leonard. I cringe to think who they're going to start tomorrow against Arizona. But it'll be interesting. I like the Penguins on the road over the Ducks. I mean, the Penguins had their win streak snapped with a 3-2 loss to Dallas on Sunday. They should bounce back. Evgeny Malkin is expected. He could make his season debut today, which would be another boost for the Penguins in the case of the rich getting richer. Like we said, Tampa Bay over Buffalo. I don't think we have to beat that one on the ground any more than we already have. I like Phoenix minus 3.5 on the road over Toronto. I get that the Raptors are playing good basketball, but they haven't really beaten anybody of substance. The Suns obviously still tied with the Warriors atop the Western Conference and the league standings when you get right down to it. I like the fact that the Suns will bounce back and get the win there. We talked about Washington over Oklahoma City. The Thunder don't score any points. It's tough to win that way. The Wizards get Montrezl Harrell back. Should be a big boost for them. And then the Timberwolves, minus 4 on the road. They go to New Orleans to face the still Zion-less Pelicans. You have to think the Timberwolves will get another win there. It was interesting to see Karl Anthony Towns on Celebrity Wheel of Fortune the other night. I guess he had free time to do that. But obviously the Timberwolves are a better team than New Orleans is right now. Anthony Edwards has played great basketball. D'Angelo Russell, you have to think that Minnesota can get the win in the Big Easy and prevail in that one.
I think the game to watch tonight, just for interest, is the one you were talking about with Golden State in Memphis. That might be the better NBA game that's being played tonight.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's probably the marquee game on the slate. I mean, I know there was a lot of hope for Denver and the Clippers, but I mean, the Clippers, they're down to 20-21 now. And what's even worse is the Clippers have played, this will be their 26th home game in 42 games. So they're going to be playing a lot of games away from the Crypto.com arena. You have to hope that they can suddenly turn it around because they're just 7-9 on the road as it is too. Yeah. And the way that Western Conference is, you could drop from 6-9 in a hurry, or 6-10, or 6 to outside the playoff picture.
Yeah. Have one bad week and you're doomed.
Exactly.
As for your Leafs playing, in Vegas and then going to the desert, the good news is it's only an hour flight, so and you're staying in the same time zone. So I don't think that's gonna hurt them too bad from that standpoint. But all right, buddy. Any last thoughts? Any comments before we get out the door here?
Well, I see people are asking about the Iowa State game tonight, and Iowa State is they're on the road at the Fog Allen Fieldhouse over there against Kansas, and that's going to be a pretty good matchup. I mean, when you get right down to it, Iowa State, they are coming off that disappointing loss to Oklahoma the other day. Mm-hmm. So after starting 12-0, they lost to Baylor at home, they beat Texas Tech, they lost to Oklahoma on the road. So now all of a sudden they're 13-2 and they're just 1-2 in the Big 12. The big thing is, it's always tough to play in the Allen Fieldhouse. I think pretty much anybody that's been an opposing team there will tell you. Yeah. I don't know if you've been there or not, Jim.
I have, yeah.
But 12.5 points is a lot to give for a Kansas team that, isn't necessarily a cohesive offensively on a regular basis when you get right down to it. I mean,
they're not the Kansas of old, but they're still Kansas.
Right, but I mean, but 12.5 might be a little too much to give here. I mean, they're coming off a loss to Texas Tech Saturday. They lost by 8, and don't forget they lost to Dayton back in November on a neutral floor at the ESPN Events Invitational down there in Orlando. Right. And you look at some of these games, they struggled to beat Stephen F. Austin at home. They beat them 80-72, and they struggled to beat George Mason 76-67. Now, I'm not going to take anything away from those teams. They're good mid-major teams, but I mean, you're talking about a team from the WAC and Stephen F. Austin, the Lumberjacks, they're coming off, since they've lost 3 of their last 4. They lost to Tarleton State in overtime Saturday, and George Mason is 7-6. They started 4-0. They lost 5 in a row. They won 3 straight, and then they lost to Kansas. And now they won't play until next Monday. So George Mason is going to sit there for two plus weeks twiddling their thumbs. I actually think Iowa State, with the way they play defense, and I mean, let's face it, outside of Baylor, Iowa State's got to be one of the most difficult teams to play defensively. TJ Otzelberger, why couldn't he do this at UNLV?
Yeah, that I'm sure the people at UNLV are asking the same question. But yeah, it's going to be fun. I agree with you, Kansas. Giving away that many points, that's a lot of points.
And James, that's a good thing. You should do research, and if you have questions to ask about, that's what we do. We do research, and sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. I mean, that's why they call it gambling. You can't expect that you're gonna just automatically get a free win. It's not like you're playing, say, NHL '93 on your Sega Genesis, where you can play as an all-star team and play the Ottawa Senators full of teams players rated 4.
But you know what, Chris? To your point, something that I think is very important, and it's one of the reasons that I was attracted to Winners and Whiners in the first place, is that you're going to get analysis. Okay, you're not going to get this, hyper active guy who comes on and says, "I've picked 17 of the last 19 games, against the spread." It's like, okay, you didn't tell me what 17 games you played that you won, and you didn't tell me what the spread was, but you told me you're really good at this. What you're giving and what we try to give people is statistical information. Okay? How you use that statistical information is entirely up to you. If you use that statistical information, is entirely up to you. So yeah, we're here. We're picking winners, but we're picking winners based not on whether we like the team or like the coach or like the players, but strictly on the numbers. You got the numbers, then that gives you, when you make a wager, the opportunity to at least be better educated. And there's nothing wrong with that, win or lose.
Right. I mean, that's just it. And like we said, there's going to have times when somebody's going to, break the trends out of that. I mean, look at IUPUI yesterday. Mm-hmm. We talked about how they didn't score more than 61 points all year, and they were second, or I can't remember if they were second or last in scoring offense. But either way, they put up 65 points. They covered. I didn't think they were going to score 65 points. I'll sit here and tell you I didn't think they were going to score 65. I figured they would have scored in the 50s. I figured UIC would have come up with the win.
Mm-hmm. But, again, all that we give you is information. What you do with it is up to you. All right.
But ride Illinois to the bank, because I can't see Nebraska stopping anybody.
There you go. All right. Gang, it's been fun. And we will be back with you tomorrow at 1:30, same time, same place. And hang on, 3 o'clock, you're going to see Scott and Scott, all right, here on the Winners and Whiners Sports.
And you can tell them that we said if Cockburn doesn't get a double-double, they're going to eat hats.
There you go. And that's going to be on their show, which is Back to the Window. So for Chris King, I'm Jim Williams. We've had a lot of fun chatting and hanging with you guys today. Let's make it a daily choice. Come on over, hang out for us over your lunch hour, and we can debate. As Chris has said, and you guys are happy to throw things out there. We're always happy to try to answer them. Okay. So thanks a lot for joining us. Thanks a lot for being part of our day, and we hope to have been a little fun in your day. Tomorrow, 1:30. Be here. We'll see you then.